First contact. The night sky above rural Montana blazed with an otherworldly light as the alien scout ship Zephyr plummeted through Earth's atmosphere. Inside the craft, First Officer Tylana fought to regain control of the failing systems, her four-fingered hands dancing across holographic displays. Propulsion offline. Shields at critical, shouted Glix, the ship's engineer. His tentacles waved frantically as he tried to reroute power. Xylana gritted her teeth, her pale blue skin glistening with sweat. Brace for impact. The Zephyr crashed into a wheat field, carving a deep furrow through the golden stalks before coming to rest in a smoking heap of twisted metal. For a moment, all was silent save for the crackle of small fires and the hiss of escaping gases. Miles away, local Sheriff Jack Hawkins was enjoying a quiet evening at home when his radio crackled to life. "Sheriff, we've got reports of a meteor strike out near the Johnsons' farm. Folks are saying it lit up the whole sky." Jack sighed, setting down his coffee mug. "I'm on my way. Tell fire and rescue to meet me there." As he drove towards the reported crash site, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than a simple meteor. The eerie glow on the horizon sent a shiver down his spine. Back at the crash site, Tylana regained consciousness. She unbuckled herself from the pilot's seat, wincing at the pain in her side. "Glix, Captain Zorn. Anyone?" A weak groan came from nearby. Xylana found Glix pinned under a fallen bulkhead, his normally vibrant green skin pale and mottled. "First Officer," he wheezed. "The captain. He didn't make it." Xylana's heart sank. She helped free Glix, then made her way to the ship's exterior. The cool night air hit her like a shock, reminding her how far they were from home. In the distance, she could see lights approaching. "Glix, we need to hide," she said urgently. "The natives are coming." As Jack arrived at the scene, his jaw dropped. This was no meteor. The sleek, otherworldly design of the crashed ship left no doubt. He was looking at honest-to-God alien technology. "Holy shit," he breathed, reaching for his radio. But before he could call it in, movement caught his eye. Two figures were emerging from the wreckage, unlike anything he'd ever seen. Tylana froze as she locked eyes with the human. For a moment, neither moved, each taking in the impossible reality before them. Then Glix stumbled, breaking the spell. Jack's training kicked in. He drew his weapon but kept it lowered. "Stop right there," he called out. "Don't move." Tylana raised her hand slowly, recognizing the universal gesture of surrender. "We mean no harm," she said, her translation implant struggling to form the unfamiliar words. "Our ship crashed. We need help." Jack's mind reeled. The alien was speaking English. Broken, accented English, but English nonetheless. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Are there others?" he asked, gesturing towards the ship. Xylana's expression fell. "Our captain did not survive." The sorrow in her voice was unmistakable, transcending the barriers of species. Jack lowered his weapon completely. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said softly. Just then, the wail of sirens pierced the night. Fire trucks and ambulances were approaching. Jack made a split-second decision that would change the course of human history. "Quick," he said to the aliens, "you need to hide. If everyone sees you, there'll be panic. Let me handle this first." Tylana nodded gratefully, helping Glix back towards the concealment of their ruined ship. As they disappeared from view, Jack turned to face the arriving emergency vehicles, his mind racing. How the hell was he going to explain this? The next few hours passed in a blur. Jack managed to keep the crash site secured, feeding the firefighters and paramedics a story about an experimental aircraft. He called in every favor he had, reaching out to old military contacts to keep things quiet until he could figure out what to do. As dawn broke, Jack found himself sitting on the tailgate of his truck, sharing a thermos of coffee with two extraterrestrials. The absurdity of the situation wasn't lost on him. "So," he said, breaking the awkward silence. "Where exactly are you from?" Kaitailana pointed to a faint star just visible in the lightening sky. "Our home world orbits that star. We call it Lumina." Jack whistled low. "That's a hell of a long way to come just to crash in my backyard. What brought you here?" Glix and Xylana exchanged a look. "We are scouts," Xylana explained. "Our civilization has been searching for other intelligent life. We did not expect to find it here." "What's that supposed to mean?" Jack asked, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his voice. Glix's tentacles waved in what Jack was beginning to recognize as a gesture of appeasement. "No offense intended," the alien engineer said. "It's just that your world is rather out of the way. We didn't think to look here." Jack chuckled despite himself. "Well, I guess we're full of surprises." Their conversation was interrupted by the roar of approaching helicopters. Jack stood, his expression grim. "Looks like the cavalry's arrived. For better or worse." Within minutes, the wheat field was swarming with men in dark suits and military uniforms. Jack found himself being debriefed by a stern-faced woman who introduced herself only as Agent Chen. "You've done well, Sheriff," she said, her tone clipped and professional. "We'll take it from here." Jack bristled. "Now wait just a minute. These folks crash-landed in my county. They're my responsibility." Chen's eyebrow arched. "Your responsibility? Sheriff, you're dealing with extraterrestrial life forms. This is so far above your pay grade." "They trust me," Jack interrupted. "I'm not about to hand them over to be dissected or interrogated or God knows what else." For a moment, Chen's mask of cool professionalism slipped, revealing a hint of weariness. "It's not like that, Sheriff. We're not monsters. But this is a matter of global security. We need to handle this carefully." Jack stood his ground. "Then let me help. I'll work with you, but I'm not leaving them." Chen studied him for a long moment before nodding. "Fine, but you follow our lead, understood?" As they walked back towards the crash site, Jack couldn't help but wonder what he'd gotten himself into. The weight of the situation settled on his shoulders. He was now humanity's ambassador to an alien species. The fate of two worlds might well rest on what happened here in this quiet Montana field. Xylana watched the humans from the shadows of the ruined Zephyr, her heart heavy with worry. She'd come seeking new life among the stars, driven by curiosity and a desire for peaceful contact. Now, faced with the reality of that contact, she found herself afraid. Not of the humans themselves, but of the enormous consequences of this moment. She thought of her home world, of the hopes and dreams that had launched this mission. What would this discovery mean for her people? For the humans, the universe suddenly felt so much smaller, and yet infinitely more complex. Glix placed a reassuring tentacle on her shoulder. "We knew the risks when we volunteered for this mission, First Officer. Whatever happens, we've made history." Kailana nodded, drawing strength from her companion's words. As Jack approached with Agent Chen, Kailana straightened her posture and stepped forward. This was the moment that would define everything that came after. "Greetings," she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I am First Officer Xylana of the Luminan Exploration Fleet. On behalf of my people, I come in peace and friendship." Chen's eyes widened almost imperceptibly, the only sign of the shock she must have been feeling. To her credit, she recovered quickly. "I am Agent Chen, representing the governments of Earth. We welcome you and offer our assistance." As the two groups began their cautious introductions, Jack found himself marveling at the history unfolding before him. Humans and aliens, meeting face to face for the first time. Despite the circumstances, the crashed ship, the secrecy, the looming questions, he felt a surge of hope. This was the dawn of a new era for humanity. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, not just as a single species, but as part of a larger galactic community. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with misunderstandings and obstacles. But looking at the way Xylana and Chen were already engaged in earnest conversation, Jack knew it was a road worth traveling. As the sun rose fully over the Montana plains, casting its warm light on humans and aliens alike, Jack allowed himself a small smile. The universe, it seemed, was full of surprises, and humanity, for all its flaws, was ready to rise to the occasion. The first contact had been made. Now, the real work of building bridges between worlds could begin. Cultural confusion. The makeshift command center hummed with activity as humans and Luminans worked side by side. In the week since the Zephyr's crash, a small compound had sprung up around the site, hidden from prying eyes by a cover story about a chemical spill. Inside, scientists, linguists, and diplomats from both species raced to bridge the gap between their civilizations. Jack Hawkins found himself in the unlikely role of mediator, his straightforward manner and genuine curiosity making him a natural liaison between the two groups. He approached a workstation where Tailana was engrossed in conversation with Dr. Emily Chen, Earth's leading xenobiologist and Agent Chen's younger sister. "How's it going, ladies?" Jack asked, setting down a tray of coffee and what passed for Luminan refreshments, a fizzy green liquid that smelled faintly of pine needles. Tailana's multifaceted eyes lit up at the sight of the drink. "Ah, fermented chlorophyll extract. You remembered, Jack. Thank you." Emily smiled, reaching for a coffee. "We're making progress, Sheriff. Tailana's biology is fascinating. Did you know they photosynthesize?" Jack blinked. "They what now?" Tailana's skin rippled in what Jack had learned was the Luminan equivalent of a chuckle. "We absorb energy from light, like your plants. It supplements our diet." "Well, I'll be damned," Jack mused. "No wonder you folks are so fond of sunbathing." The easy banter was interrupted by a commotion from across the room. Glix, the Luminan engineer, was engaged in what appeared to be a heated argument with Dr. Roberts, the human computer scientist. No. Glix's tentacles waved in agitation. "Your binary system is hopelessly primitive. How can you possibly encode complex thought patterns in mere ones and zeros?" Dr. Roberts' face was flushed with frustration. "Primitive. Our binary systems have taken us to the moon, mapped the human genome, and created artificial intelligence." Jack exchanged a glance with Tailana. "I'd better go referee," he sighed. As he approached, Glix was demonstrating the Luminan computing system, a shimmering three-dimensional hologram that pulsed with colors Jack couldn't even name. "You see," Glix was saying, "our quantum entanglement processors allow for infinite variable states. Your binary can only handle yes or no, on or off, but reality is full of maze." Dr. Roberts scoffed. "And I suppose your superior technology is what caused your ship to crash." The room fell silent. Jack stepped in quickly. "All right, let's take a breather, folks. Dr. Roberts, why don't you show Glix how we've adapted binary for quantum computing? And Glix, maybe you could explain more about how your processors handle those maybes." Both scientist and alien looked chastened. As they turned back to their work, Jack caught Tailana's eye. She nodded appreciatively. These cultural clashes had become increasingly common as the two species learned more about each other. What had started as excitement and wonder was giving way to frustration and misunderstanding. The differences between humans and Luminans went far beyond the physical. Later that evening, Jack found Tailana standing outside, basking in the last rays of the setting sun. Her blue skin had taken on a slight golden hue. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked, joining her. Tailana's translation implant took a moment to process the idiom. "I am concerned, Jack. Our peoples are so different. I fear we may never truly understand each other." Jack nodded, looking out at the Montana landscape. "Yeah, I've been worrying about that too. But you know what? I think that's okay." Tailana turned to him, surprised. "You do?" "Sure," Jack said with a shrug. "Look, humans don't even understand each other half the time. We've got thousands of cultures and languages right here on Earth. But we still managed to work together, trade, make friends, even fall in love. He gestured towards the compound. In there, you've got some of the smartest folks from two different worlds butting heads. But they're also learning from each other. That's how progress happens. Phylena considered this. Perhaps you are right. On Lumina, we have a saying. In the clash of currents, the river finds its course. Jack grinned. I like that. Mind if I borrow it? Their moment of understanding was interrupted by Agent Chen's arrival. Her usual composed demeanor seemed strained. Sheriff, First Officer, we have a situation. Inside the command center, they found Emily and Glix huddled around a communications array. Emily looked up as they entered, her face pale. We've intercepted a transmission. There's another Luminan ship approaching Earth. Tylena's eyes widened. Impossible. We weren't due for contact with the fleet for another 3 lunar cycles. Glix's tentacles writhed nervously. It's the Storm Chaser, First Officer, Captain Vex's ship. Jack saw Xylana stiffen at the name. I take it this Captain Vex isn't known for his diplomatic skills. He is known for his efficiency, Tylana said carefully, and his distrust of unknown species. Agent Chen's voice was tense. How long do we have? Emily checked the readings. Based on their current speed, they'll enter Earth's orbit in approximately 72 hours. The room erupted into a flurry of activity. Humans and Luminans alike recognized the gravity of the situation. First contact was about to become first conflict if they couldn't find a way to peacefully welcome, or deter, the approaching ship. Jack pulled Xylana aside. Level with me. How bad is this? Xylana's normally vibrant skin had taken on a dull, ashen tone. Captain Vex is a war hero from our last interstellar conflict. He sees threats everywhere. If he believes Earth to be hostile. She didn't need to finish the thought. Jack's mind raced, thinking of the panic that would ensue if a Luminan warship appeared in the sky, of the potential for misunderstanding, for violence. We need to talk to him, Jack said firmly. Explain the situation before he gets here. Tyla nodded. Yes, but our long-range communications were damaged in the crash. We'd need to boost the signal significantly to reach the Storm Chaser. Jack turned to Glix and Dr. Roberts, who were already deep in discussion about potential solutions. Looks like you two geniuses get to put your heads together after all. Think you can rig up something to contact that ship? The human and Luminan exchanged a glance, years of scientific rivalry melting away in the face of a common goal. We'll need to combine our technologies, Dr. Roberts said. Glix's tentacles wiggled in agreement. Yes, yes. Your radio telescopes, our quantum entanglement. It just might work. As the scientists set to work, Agent Chen approached Jack. Sheriff, I need to brief my superiors. This is about to become a global situation. Jack nodded grimly. Do what you need to do. But remember, these folks came here in peace. Let's not start a war because we're afraid of one. Chen's expression softened slightly. Understood, Sheriff. We'll do our best to keep cooler heads prevailing. As Chen left to make her calls, Jack found himself at the center of a storm of activity. Humans and Luminans working together, racing against time to prevent an interstellar incident. The fate of two worlds rested on their ability to overcome their differences and find common ground. He caught Xylana's eye across the room. Despite the tension, he saw a glimmer of hope there. They'd come so far in just a week. Surely they could overcome this new challenge. Outside, the Montana night sky sparkled with stars. Somewhere up there, a ship was approaching, carrying with it the potential for peace or conflict. As Jack looked up at those distant points of light, he couldn't help but feel the weight of history on his shoulders. The next 72 hours would determine the course of human-Luminan relations for generations to come. It was time to show the universe what humanity was really made of. As the compound buzzed with frantic activity, Jack allowed himself a small, determined smile. They'd come this far. They weren't about to let a little thing like an alien warship ruin everything now. The clash of cultures had brought them to this point. Now it was time for cooperation to light the way forward. Looming threat. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of frenzied activity. The compound, once a hub of cultural exchange and scientific discovery, now thrummed with nervous energy. Humans and Luminans worked side by side, their earlier squabbles forgotten in the face of impending crisis. Jack found himself in the heart of it all, coordinating efforts between the scientists, military personnel, and their alien guests. He barely slept, sustaining himself on coffee and adrenaline. "How's it coming?" he asked, approaching the makeshift communications array where Glix and Dr. Roberts were hunched over a tangle of wires and pulsing alien tech. Dr. Roberts looked up, dark circles under his eyes. "We're close, Sheriff. The integration of Luminan quantum entanglement with our radio telescopes is, well, it's revolutionary." Glix's tentacles waved in what Jack had come to recognize as excitement. "Indeed, your binary systems, when properly interfaced with our technology, create a synergy we never anticipated. We could be on the verge of a breakthrough in faster-than-light communication." Jack smiled despite the tension. "That's great, folks, but let's focus on the immediate goal, all right? We need to contact that ship." As if on cue, Tylena burst into the room, her skin flushed a deep indigo. A sign of distress, Jack had learned. "We have a problem," she said, her usually melodic voice strained. "I've been analyzing the storm chaser's approach vector. They're not just coming to investigate. They're in attack formation." The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Agent Chen, who had been conferring with military officials in the corner, stepped forward. "Are you certain?" Silana nodded grimly. "I served under Captain Vex briefly. I recognize his tactics. He's preparing for a first strike." Jack's mind raced. "But why? You folks came here peacefully. Surely he's not planning to attack without provocation." Tylana's multifaceted eyes shimmered with what might have been tears. "You don't understand. In our history, first contact with other species has rarely gone well. There have been conflicts. Captain Vex lost his entire family in one such encounter. He believes in striking first to protect our people." The implications were staggering. Earth, still reeling from the revelation that they weren't alone in the universe, now faced the threat of an alien invasion. Jack could already imagine the panic, the chaos that would ensue if a Luminan warship appeared in the skies. "We need to talk to him," Jack said firmly. "Make him understand that this isn't a threat situation." Dr. Roberts cleared his throat. "We're ready to test the communications array. If it works, we should be able to establish contact with the storm chaser." Jack nodded. "Do it." As Glix and Dr. Roberts made final adjustments, Jack pulled Xylana aside. "I need you to talk to Vex," he said quietly. "He knows you. He might listen." Xylana's skin rippled with uncertainty. "Jack, I'm just a first officer. Vex outranks me significantly." Jack placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, marveling for a moment at the alien texture of her skin. "You're also the only Luminan he knows who's had peaceful contact with us. You're our best shot at preventing a war." After a moment, Xylana nodded. "I'll do my best." A high-pitched whine filled the air as the communications array powered up. Glix's tentacles danced over the controls, fine-tuning the signal. "We're broadcasting," he announced, attempting to establish a quantum link with the storm chaser's systems. Tense seconds ticked by. Jack found himself holding his breath, acutely aware that the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. Then, with a crackle of static, a holographic image flickered to life in the center of the room. Captain Vex was an imposing figure, his blue skin darker and more weathered than Xylana's. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed along his arms. Battle scars, Jack realized. The Luminan captain's eyes widened in surprise as he took in the scene before him. "First Officer Xylana." Vex's voice was deep, reverberating with authority. "Explain yourself. Why are you surrounded by aliens?" Xylana stepped forward, her posture straight and formal. Captain Vex, I must report that we have made peaceful first contact with the native species of this planet. They call themselves humans, and they have shown us nothing but hospitality and cooperation. Vex's eyes narrowed. Cooperation. First officer, need I remind you of the Zephyr's distress signal? We detected weapons fire in your vicinity upon entering this system. Jack's heart sank. The initial crash, the emergency flares, of course an approaching ship would interpret that as hostile action. He stepped into view of the hologram. Captain Vex, my name is Jack Hawkins. I represent the people of Earth. What you detected was an accident, not an attack. We've been working with Talana and Glix to repair their ship and establish peaceful relations. Vex's gaze shifted to Jack, his expression unreadable. You expect me to believe that you just happened upon our scout ship and decided to render aid. Thousands of years of galactic history suggest otherwise, human. Agent Chen joined the conversation, her voice calm and diplomatic. Captain, we understand your caution. But I assure you, Earth has no hostile intentions towards your people. We're still coming to terms with the fact that we're not alone in the universe. We seek friendship, not conflict. For a moment, Vex seemed to waver, but then his expression hardened. Pretty words, but I've heard them before. I will not risk the safety of my crew or my civilization on the promises of an unknown species. The Storm Chaser will proceed with its mission. If you have truly befriended our people, you will turn them over to us immediately. Any resistance will be met with force. The hologram flickered out, leaving the room in stunned silence. Jack turned to Xylana, his voice low and urgent. How long do we have? She consulted a nearby display. At their current speed, the Storm Chaser will enter weapons range in approximately 18 hours. Agent Chen was already on her secure line. This is Chen. We need to go to global alert status. Prepare for possible first contact scenario. Code red. As the compound erupted into frantic activity, Jack felt a moment of despair. How had they come so far, only to face annihilation? He looked around the room, at Glix and Dr. Roberts, still working feverishly on the communications array, at Emily, poring over lumen and biological data for any insight that might help, at Xylana, her alien features etched with worry and resolve. In that moment, Jack made a decision. They hadn't come this far to give up now. Humanity had faced extinction-level threats before, from nature, from each other. Each time, they'd come together, innovated, and survived. This time would be no different. All right, listen up. Jack's voice cut through the chaos. We've got 18 hours to convince Captain Vex that we're not a threat. I want every scrap of data we've gathered on lumen and culture, every bit of progress we've made together. Toilana, Glix, I need you to help us understand Vex's psychology, his motivations. There's got to be a way to reach him. He turned to Agent Chen. We need options. Defensive capabilities, evacuation plans, anything that might buy us time. But let's be clear, our goal is peace. We're not starting an interstellar war today. As the team sprang into action with renewed purpose, Jack caught Xylana's eye. She approached him, her expression a mix of admiration and concern. Jack, even if we can't convince Vex, know that Glix and I will stand with Earth. We won't let our people attack yours without a fight. Jack managed a smile. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. We've all worked too hard to build something here. I'm not giving up on it just because one old war dog can't see past his own fears. Outside, the Montana sky began to lighten with the first hints of dawn. Somewhere up there, an alien warship was bearing down on them, carrying with it the potential for Earth's first interstellar conflict. But down here, in this secret compound, humans and Luminans stood united. They had 18 hours to change the course of history. It was time to show the universe what they could really do when they worked together. As Jack rallied his unlikely team, he couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. They'd overcome their own cultural differences. Now it was time to bridge an even greater divide. and save 2 worlds in the process. The clock was ticking. The greatest challenge of first contact was about to begin. Unlikely alliance. The compound was a hive of activity as the countdown to the storm chaser's arrival ticked relentlessly onward. Humans and Luminans worked side by side, their earlier misunderstandings forgotten in the face of impending crisis. Jack stood at the center of the command room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the storm chaser's approach vector, Earth's defensive capabilities, and streams of data from the ongoing cultural exchange efforts. "All right, people," he called out, his voice cutting through the din. "We've got 12 hours left. I need updates." Dr. Emily Chen stepped forward, her usually immaculate lab coat rumpled from hours of nonstop work. "We've been analyzing luminant physiology, particularly their response to different wavelengths of light. We think we might be able to use this to our advantage." Jack nodded encouragingly. "Go on." Emily gestured to a complex diagram of luminant cellular structure. "Their photosynthetic capabilities make them incredibly sensitive to certain frequencies. If we can modulate our global satellite network to emit a specific pulse of light, it might disorient the storm chaser's crew long enough for us to establish communication. Like a giant flashbang for the whole planet," Jack mused. "Clever. But will it hurt Cylana and Glix?" "We've accounted for that," Emily assured him. "We can provide them with protective gear." Glix, who had been listening intently, waved his tentacles in excitement. "Brilliant. If I may, I believe I can help calibrate your satellites for maximum effect." Jack smiled at the unlikely collaboration. "Make it happen." He turned to Agent Chen, who was deep in discussion with military officials. "What's our backup plan if this doesn't work?" Chen's face was grim. "We've got every missile silo on high alert. Fighter jets scrambled worldwide. But Jack, if it comes to a firefight, I'm not sure we stand a chance against their technology." Jack nodded soberly. "Then we make damn sure it doesn't come to that. Where are we on the diplomatic front?" Ilana approached, her skin a swirl of anxious colors. "I've been reviewing every scrap of information we have on Captain Vex's psychological profile. There might be a way to appeal to his sense of duty, but it's risky." "At this point, I'm all ears," Jack said. Ilana took a deep breath. Vex lost his family in a first contact situation gone wrong. But before that, he was known as a champion of luminant exploration and scientific advancement. If we can remind him of that part of himself, show him that peaceful contact with humanity could propel our civilization forward. "It's worth a shot," Jack agreed. "But we'll need something big to grab his attention, something that proves beyond a doubt that we're better as allies than enemies." As if on cue, Dr. Roberts burst into the room, his eyes wild with excitement. "We did it," he shouted, waving a datapad. "Glix and I, we've cracked it." "Cracked what?" Jack asked, hope rising in his chest. Glix slithered in behind Dr. Roberts, his tentacles practically vibrating with joy. "Faster than light communication. By combining our quantum entanglement technology with your binary systems and global satellite network, we've created a method of instantaneous data transfer across vast distances." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Jack turned to Xylana, seeing his own awe reflected in her multifaceted eyes. Would this be enough to impress Captain Vex? Xylana nodded slowly. "Faster than light communication has been a holy grail for our scientists for generations. This could change everything." Jack felt a surge of renewed determination. "All right, new plan. We're going to give Captain Vex a demonstration he can't ignore. Dr. Roberts, Glix, I need you to prepare a complete technical breakdown of this discovery. Emily, work with them to include data on how it could benefit luminant biology research. Xylana, you'll make the presentation to Vex." "Me?" Xylana's skin rippled with surprise. "You're the bridge between our worlds," Jack said softly. "If anyone can make him see reason, it's you." As the team scrambled to prepare, Jack pulled Agent Chen aside. How quickly can we get the world leaders on board with this? If we're going to offer an alliance, we need to speak for all of humanity." Chen's eyes widened. "You want to offer them an alliance? Jack, we barely know these beings." Jack gestured around the room, where humans and luminans worked in perfect synchronicity. "Look around, Chen. We've accomplished more in a week working together than either of our species has in years. Imagine what we could do with a real partnership." Chen considered this for a long moment before nodding. "I'll make the calls. But Jack, if this goes sideways—" "I know," Jack said grimly. "It's on me." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Jack found himself bouncing between teams, offering encouragement, making decisions on the fly, and watching in awe as human and luminan ingenuity combined to create miracles. With just 2 hours left before the storm chaser entered Earth's orbit, they were as ready as they'd ever be. The global satellite network had been recalibrated, the faster-than-light communication system was primed for demonstration, and Zaylana had been briefed on every possible angle to appeal to Vex's better nature. As the team gathered for one final review, Jack looked at each of them in turn, human and luminan alike. "I won't lie to you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "What we're attempting here has never been done before. We're not just trying to prevent a war. We're trying to forge an alliance that could change the course of 2 civilizations. Whatever happens up there, I want you all to know that what you've done here, what you've created together, is nothing short of miraculous." Zaylana stepped forward, placing a 4-fingered hand on Jack's shoulder. "On Lumina, we have a saying. In the darkest night, stars shine brightest. You have shown us the best of humanity, Jack Hawkins. Whatever comes, we face it together." A cheer went up from the assembled team, human and luminan voices joining in a moment of unity that transcended species. As it faded, Dr. Roberts called out from the communications array, "We've got incoming. The storm chaser has entered orbit." Jack took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "Showtime, folks. Let's go make history." The main view screen crackled to life, revealing the bridge of the storm chaser. Captain Vex stood front and center, his posture rigid, eyes hard as he took in the scene before him. "Captain Vex," Zaylana began, her voice steady despite the enormity of the moment. "On behalf of both Lumina and Earth, I come to you with an offer of peace and a glimpse of a future brighter than either of our species could achieve alone." Vex's expression remained impassive, but he didn't immediately cut the transmission. It was a start. As Zaylana launched into her presentation, detailing the breakthroughs they'd made and the potential for further advancement, Jack watched Vex closely. He saw the flicker of interest in the captain's eyes at the mention of faster-than-light communication, the almost imperceptible softening of his posture as Zaylana spoke of the cultural exchange they'd experienced. But it wasn't enough. Jack could see the doubt, the ingrained suspicion fighting against hope. Just as Vex opened his mouth to respond, likely with a rejection, Jack made a split-second decision. He stepped into view, his heart pounding. "Captain Vex," he said, his voice ringing with conviction. "I'm Jack Hawkins, and I speak now for all of humanity. We know you've come here prepared for war, expecting to find enemies. Instead, I'm asking you to look around. Really look." Jack gestured to the room behind him, where humans and luminans stood side by side. "In 1 week, we've overcome differences that span galaxies. We've combined our knowledge, our creativity, our spirit of exploration to achieve things neither of us could have done alone. And this is just the beginning." He took a step closer to the screen, his eyes locked with Vex. "You came here to protect your people. I'm telling you now, the greatest protection, the greatest advancement, the greatest future for both our species lies in working together. Not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals, as friends." Jack held out his hand, palm up, in a gesture of peace. "What do you say, Captain? Shall we show the universe what we can accomplish together?" The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. Jack was acutely aware of every breath, every heartbeat. He could feel the hopes and fears of two worlds resting on this moment. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, Captain Vex's stern expression began to soften. A lifetime of suspicion warred with the evidence before his eyes, with the potential for a future he had long thought impossible. "Perhaps," Vex said at last, his voice rough with emotion, "it is time for a new approach." As the tension in the room dissolved into cheers and tears of relief, Jack felt a weight lift from his shoulders. They had done it. Against all odds, they had forged a connection that spanned the stars. The real work was just beginning, of course. There would be challenges ahead, misunderstandings to navigate, trust to be built. But in that moment, as humans and Luminans embraced in celebration, Jack knew they had taken the first, crucial step towards a brighter future for both their worlds. He caught Silana's eye across the room, saw the joy and hope shining in her alien features. They had started this journey as strangers, separated by light years and biology. Now they stood as partners, ready to face the universe together. As the first light of dawn broke over the Montana horizon, Jack allowed himself a smile. A new day was dawning, not just for Earth, but for all of galactic civilization, and they were going to face it united. Galactic diplomacy. 6 months had passed since the fateful day when humanity and the Luminans had narrowly averted conflict and chosen alliance instead. The small compound in Montana had grown into a sprawling complex, officially dubbed the Terran-Luminan Cooperative Center, but affectionately known as Starbridge by those who worked there. Jack Hawkins stood at the window of his new office, gazing out at the bustling activity below. Human scientists in lab coats walked alongside Luminan researchers, their skin shimmering with excited bioluminescence. Military personnel from both species ran joint training exercises, learning to combine their unique strengths. And everywhere, there was an air of optimism and purpose. A soft chime announced a visitor. Jack turned to see Silana enter, her multifaceted eyes sparkling with barely contained excitement. "Jack, the Council has made their decision. They're ready for us." Jack took a deep breath, straightening his newly pressed diplomatic uniform. "Well, let's not keep the galaxies waiting." They made their way to the heart of the complex, a state-of-the-art conference room equipped with holographic technology that allowed real-time communication across vast distances. As they entered, Jack nodded to the assembled team. Dr. Emily Chen, now head of Xenobiology, Dr. Roberts and Glix, joint chiefs of the Revolutionary FTL Communications Division, and Agent Chen, who had become Earth's unofficial ambassador to the stars. At the center of the room, a shimmering hologram flickered to life, revealing the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. Beings of all shapes and sizes filled the tiered seats, some humanoid, others utterly alien. At the forefront stood Captain Vex, now serving as the Luminan representative to the Council. A tall, ethereal being with flowing tendrils for hair stepped forward. "Greetings, representatives of Earth and Lumina. I am High Counselor Zyra. We have reviewed your petition for joint species membership in the Galactic Alliance. Are you prepared to present your case?" Jack exchanged a glance with Silana, who gave him an encouraging nod. They had rehearsed this moment countless times, but the reality of addressing beings from across the cosmos was still overwhelming. "Honored counselors," Jack began, his voice steady despite his nerves. 6 months ago, our species were on the brink of conflict, separated by fear and misunderstanding. Today, we stand before you as partners, having achieved in half a year what many thought impossible. Silana stepped forward, her skin pulsing with gentle light. "We come to you not as two separate entities, but as a united front. The strengths of humanity, their adaptability, their creativity, their indomitable spirit, combined with Luminan technology and cosmic understanding have already yielded remarkable advancements." Dr. Roberts and Glix activated a holographic display, showcasing the breakthroughs they had made. "Our joint teams have refined faster-than-light communication," Glix explained, his tentacles gesticulating excitedly. We're on the verge of revolutionizing galactic information exchange. Emily chimed in. And in the field of medicine, the combination of human genetic research with luminant biophotonic techniques is opening up possibilities for curing diseases across multiple species. The council members murmured among themselves, clearly impressed. But Jack knew the real challenge was yet to come. High Counselor Zyra's voice cut through the buzz. Your achievements are indeed noteworthy. But the Galactic Alliance has strict protocols for admitting new species. Never before have we considered a joint application from two species, let alone one as young as humanity. How can you assure us that this alliance will stand the test of time? This was the moment they had prepared for. Jack stepped forward, his eyes scanning the assembled cosmic dignitaries. Counselors, I won't stand here and tell you that our path has been easy, or that we've solved all our differences. We haven't. What I can tell you is this. Every challenge we've faced together. And we've come out stronger for it. He gestured to his team. Look around this room. 6 months ago, we were strangers. Now, we're family. We've laughed together, argued together, solved problems together. We've learned each other's languages, customs, hopes, and fears. Stylana joined him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder in a gesture of unity. Our alliance isn't just about technological advancements or political expediency. It's about recognizing that despite our differences, perhaps even because of them, we are stronger together than we ever could be apart. A gravelly voice spoke up from the council. Pretty words, but how do we know this isn't just a ploy? Humans have a history of conflict among themselves. How can we trust them with galactic responsibilities? Jack felt a flare of defensiveness, but before he could respond, Captain Vex stepped forward. If I may, counselors, I once stood where you stand, viewing humanity with suspicion and fear. I was prepared to strike first, to eliminate what I perceived as a threat. The chamber fell silent, all eyes on the luminant captain. But these humans showed me another way. They took in our crashed scouts, offered aid without question. When faced with a superior military force, they chose diplomacy over violence. They have shown a capacity for growth, for overcoming their darker impulses, that is truly remarkable. Vex turned to Jack and Zerlana, his expression softening. In the short time I've known them, I've seen humans accomplish feats I thought impossible, simply because no one told them they couldn't. Their optimism, their drive to explore and understand, is infectious. I believe the Galactic Alliance would be poorer without their presence. A ripple of discussion passed through the council. Jack held his breath, acutely aware that the future of both their species hung in the balance. High Counselor Zyra raised a hand for silence. We have heard your arguments, and they are compelling. However, such a momentous decision cannot be made lightly. The council will deliberate. Please wait outside. As the hologram flickered out, Jack let out a long breath. Well, we've done all we can. Now we wait. The next hour was one of the longest in Jack's life. The team paced the conference room, alternating between nervous silence and bursts of speculative chatter. Xylana's skin cycled through a rainbow of colors, reflecting her tumultuous emotions. Finally, the hologram sprang back to life. The council members looked solemn, their alien features unreadable. High Counselor Zyra spoke, her voice echoing in the sudden silence. Representatives of Earth and Lumina, the council has reached a decision. Jack felt Xylana's hand slip into his, her alien fingers intertwining with his own. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Your petition for joint membership is approved. The room erupted in cheers, humans and luminans embracing in celebration. Jack felt a wave of emotion wash over him. Relief, joy, and an overwhelming sense of possibility. Zyra continued, a hint of warmth creeping into her ethereal voice. However, this approval comes with conditions. You will undergo a probationary period of 5 standard galactic years. During this time, you will have limited voting rights in council matters, and your activities beyond your solar system will be closely monitored. Jack nodded, still grinning. We understand, Counselor. We won't let you down. As the details of their probationary status were outlined, Jack's mind raced with the implications. Humanity was about to take its first steps onto the galactic stage. There would be challenges ahead, cultural misunderstandings to navigate, cosmic politics to learn, and undoubtedly threats they couldn't yet imagine. But looking around at his team, human and Luminan alike, Jack felt a surge of confidence. They had already overcome so much. Whatever the universe threw at them next, they would face it together. As the council session concluded, the room filled with excited chatter. Plans were already being made for Earth's first official galactic embassy, for educational exchanges with other species, for joint scientific missions to the far reaches of space. Amidst the commotion, Jack felt a tug on his sleeve. He turned to find Cylana, her eyes shimmering with what he now recognized as the Luminan equivalent of tears. "We did it, Jack," she said softly. "When I crashed on your planet, I never imagined this." Jack smiled, squeezing her hand. "Funny how things work out, isn't it? A happy accident that changed the course of two civilizations." Cylana's skin rippled with amusement. "I don't believe in accidents, Jack Hawkins. Perhaps this was always meant to be." As they turned to join the celebrations, Jack caught sight of the night sky through the window. The stars seemed brighter somehow, more alive with possibility. Somewhere out there were wonders beyond imagination, challenges that would test them to their limits, and perhaps other species waiting for their own first contact. The universe had just gotten a whole lot bigger. But standing here, with representatives of two worlds united in purpose, Jack knew they were ready for whatever came next. The age of galactic diplomacy had begun, and humanity, hand in hand with their Luminan allies, was ready to shine.